touch on those ideas of self-actualization and authenticity because those are like very much modern psychology buzzwords, and they, you could have the reaction of like, oh, whatever, that's just optimistic secular nonsense or whatever it is. But this comes back to the idea with Jung, where Jung's really popular and people are like, ooh, like he's like the key to spirituality without religion or without Christianity. So a lot of people think. Um, and I think there's a similar thing going on with these ideas where you're actually dependent on a Christian metaphysics in order to get Jungianism to work. Same thing with self-actualization and authenticity, because a lot of times today you'll hear people talk about authenticity, and maybe to a less degree nowadays, but some degree, self-actualization is portrayed as like you do whatever, like you're be authentic to yourself, and yourself is could be anything. Like it just infinite expanse of what yourself could be, and you need to find that, and then whatever it is, be it. And this is very similar to there's no meaning there, multiple truths. There is no truth. It's really all in the same vein. But the issue is just like you were saying, we run into this perception, this tension that there are things that are out of line with who we are. And people will sort of brush that aside by, well, that's just super ego stuff. That's just culturally, what would they say? Culturally created. I'm blanking on the word now, but like the culture has burdened us with those sort of morals, but they're not really our morals. Well, I mean, that really doesn't address the point, because even if you believe that we're all culturally created, but then why is yourself a particular thing out there to go find if everything's just culturally created? I mean, you can paint this image of the only real thing to battle is all of these falsely imposed restrictions, and then true authenticity is just breaking out and defying all those things and doing whatever it is you feel like. But I think the reason why the phrase authenticity and the phrase self-actualization works and spreads and appeals to people is because there is this sense that is a true sense that there is a form, that there is a pattern out there that is something you would like to be in line with. It's not just a sea of infinite chaotic patterns and one's as good as another, and for some unexplained reason, one particularly fits you. Even if that was the case, again, you'd have to ask, why is there one that fits you? That means there's a purpose. That means there's a destiny, and that would reflect on different scales as well. So, but anyhow, I think it is the reality that well, if we're using that language, there is a self, there is a you, the ideal you, whatever it is, that calls to you, and that you should want to be authentic towards. Then the disagreement between Christianity and sort of the modern view would be that, and I think Christianity is right, is that there is much more of a fractal set of patterns that self is part of. So it's not just like the artist's fantasy of I've got infinite money and I do whatever I want and I spin paint around in a white room and everyone comes and claps. Like it's not just the fulfillment of your creative desires. there's a just like there's a self that you want to actualize towards, that self exists within a stream, and that stream is going in a particular direction. So there's more parameters and more bounds on what that ideal self should look like, than we like to think in the modern era, where we like to think that nihilism is great and there's no meaning to anything and demons don't exist and that sort of stuff. But the reality is there is a pattern and a goodness, a good order out there, and a pattern to goodness. And so, insofar as we are good and our ideal self is good, it is going to partake of that pattern in some way. It can still be infinitely differentiated, and the what can I say, the river, or the way, the tree that is this collection of those selves is wide and varied and whatnot. So it's not like it's actually limiting per se. It's only limiting in the sense that it goes towards the good and not towards what is evil. But uh, that is actually the opposite of limiting. But anyhow, um, so these phrases of self-actualization and of authenticity, that has the underlying assumption, and that's why those phrases are appealing, that there is this proper destiny, there is this proper path, there is this fitting way that you are called to be, and that you should adjust your life to get more towards that. And people are, they resonate with that, and they're sold on it, often within the bounds of the chaotic meaninglessness modern atmosphere. But even so, they're still reflecting this idea that there is an ideal to be moved towards, and there is purpose, and there is meaning, and there is goodness and integrity. And I think as you, the more authentic you are about that, the more you realize that those are realities. That means they don't just play out in your particular life and then are just truncated and non-existent all around that. That there's again, a fractal pattern where integrity and goodness organize on larger scales. Let's put it this way. So if someone was a fan of Jungian psychology, and they may well be within this realm where they're like, what's this guy talking about Christianity being, fundamentally young? Jung was a Gnostic and all this stuff. True to varying degrees, but this I would it would be a rare person who was following Jungian thought and who concluded that, well, my authentic self is a liar. Like who I'm just a person who should lie about stuff. Or my self archetype conforms to the image of a a urchin, like a street urchin. Like I'm just the lowest of the low, and I should go wallow in garbage and hope people kick me on the way by. The natural, obvious psychological approach to that would be like, no, you are being manipulated by for like outside forces and weird complexes to feel like you should act in this way. But that is not, that doesn't, just because you feel like this is somehow rewarding, or this is somehow your true self. I wouldn't be surprised in this day and age, but it would be vanishingly small people who would be like, "Oh yeah, I'm right on board with that. That's your true self. Just go be a liar. Yeah, that's right on." Or just go, uh, you know, go debase yourself in front of as many people as possible because that's your true self. There's this there's this ob it's an assumption. It's a metaphysical story that we have. It's a presupposed schema where it's like, no, we are not liars. That's not something that our true self can overlap with and be, because our true self is not commensurate with a liar. So that is one of the parameters that exists and obviously exists around what is your true self, what you can and should actualize towards, you might say. Um, and so everybody really has these intuitions and these assumptions. And even in the modern era, when there's all this nonsense going on, you really can't totally get rid of them because they're there and they're obvious. So in a sort of structured formula where someone has a complex against religion and uh, they have some affinities towards the modern, uh, whatever, modern expressive proclivities, then they'd be like, no, 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 that's not true. You can be yourself in any way, but put them in just the natural position and a counseling session, whatever it is, and they're not going to be like, oh, my true self's a liar. Like they know that's not true. How do they know that's not true? Because there are determining factors to the reality of the true self, which again is not whatever I make it up to be. It's something out there that is living and I don't have, I participate in, but I don't control.